It's now 1:30 to the Cumberland County Commissioners Weekly Finance Meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order and open the floor to any public comment before proceeding with our main agenda. Okay, first up today is Darby Christie from Adult Probation with the Morris Assessment Tool presentation. There is an ask or a future ask of commissioners for this. Just to provide a little bit of context, thank you, sir, from the PFM study, the cost the county incurred maintaining its prison population cited as one of the key areas to continue to monitor and try to manage more effectively. And I think we've seen a big shift in our criminal justice process, which includes adult and juvenile probation, amongst others, to try and use a evidence-based best practices to make sure that we're not putting people in prison who can correct their ways or amend their ways with minimal supervision. One of the keys for this is assessment tools, and I think Darby has a good story to tell us, and I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I just have a couple other announcements I have before, and I promise it's not about pay for performance.
We're in the court's pool.
I know that most of you have been in attendance, if not all of you, at our treatment court meetings that we had, ceremonies, graduations. I just wanted to let you know that our treatment court was accredited by the Pennsylvania Superior Court or Supreme Court, one of only 18 programs in the state to receive the accreditation. And the ceremony is tentatively scheduled, and I want to make sure you put on your calendars for June 10th at 11 o'clock in courtroom 1. Justice Dougherty will be making a presentation. Chief Justice Salem may also be attending, so please feel free to attend.
What was the time again?
It's tentatively June 10th at 11 o'clock.
11 a.m. Courtroom 1. Okay, that's great.
Congratulations.
And secondly, I sent out a PowerPoint presentation to each of you earlier from the stakeholders seminar that we had. The stakeholder seminar was on research evidence that leads to reductions in recidivism. I know you all couldn't attend because of some other obligations, but I just wanted to say that it's much appreciated. The county's financial support of the seminar certainly helped to make it a success. We had over 60 people there, including all the judges, the district attorney, and public defender. And I think that we all agree that it's time to try another approach, and we were all very encouraged with the research on reducing recidivism. So I do appreciate your support for that.
And I think I put a bug in somebody's ear, to put a bug in here in Sam's ear, by getting you guys back here to maybe give us the highlights of that presentation, because it is important as a future.
I think you talked to Sam about it. He did. Today I'm here to discuss the financial support required to expand the use of evidence-based practices here in Cumberland County, specifically for the use of the ORAS Risk Needs Assessment Tool and related information technology solution. I provided each of you with the 2016 statewide strategic plan for expanding the use of evidence-based practices in every adult probation department across the Commonwealth. The plan was developed and endorsed by many state agencies, including the County Commissioners Association, the Commission on Crime and Delinquency, the Administrative Office of the Courts, the Victim Advocate, the Department of Corrections, Board of Probation and Parole, in partnership with the County Chief Adult Probation Officer Association. If you'll notice, Goal 1 in the plan specifically addresses the need to establish the routine and effective use of an actuarial assessment. Currently here in Cumberland County, we're just one of the few counties across the state using a fourth generation assessment tool. In 2015, adult probation made the commitment to become an evidence-based organization by routinely using the ORAS assessment tool. The ORAS stands for Ohio Risk Assessment System. The ORAS was research developed and validated by the University of Cincinnati. As many of you know, I'm sure that research shows that the use of an actuary assessment such as the ORAS is the single most effective way to begin the process of reducing recidivism. Through use of evidence-based practices, other jurisdictions across the nation have seen as much as a 30% decrease in recidivism rates. The ORAS assessment consists of a 35-question tool that provides a more accurate way of determining the risk to reoffend. The tool is administered by a trained probation officer during a 30 to 45-minute personal interview with the offender. At the conclusion of the interview, the tool provides the probation officer with the offender's risk to reoffend, and can also identify up to 6 criminogenic needs that research has shown leads to additional criminal behavior. This information allows the probation officer to complete a case plan and address the offender's specific needs with programming proven to reduce recidivism. As far as my purposes, the assessment really allows me as an administrator to best position our department's resources and develop more cost-effective programming that delivers better outcomes in the way of reductions in recidivism per dollar invested in community corrections. I'm here today to ask for the financial support required to continue the project by funding an information technology solution for the ORAS assessment tool. Thus far, the county has invested approximately $7,000 in training expense to certify probation officers on the ORAS. Officers are currently using the pen and paper version of the tool. By the way, it is free of charge, so there's no additional cost. The only cost so far has been the training cost. A data collection solution is needed for making the assessment process more efficient and cost-effective. Data collection system will also allow the department to store and examine data for better outcomes. Currently, there are only 7 probation departments in the state certified to use ORAS. I'm certain that number will continue to grow in 2016 with the expansion of the state strategic plan that I handed out. Fortunately for us, though, 3 of those counties using the ORAS are neighboring counties, Dauphin, York, and Berks. The 4 counties, including us, Cumberland, have developed a regional partnership for an IT solution. The regional concept has provided the group with technical support from the 4 county information technology departments and expert practical advice from the 4 county probation department administrators. The regional approach also provides for larger numbers and more buying power. So we had 3 data collections that we looked at. Obviously, we were interested since we purchased or started using the ORAS system. We inquired with the University of Cincinnati about the data collection system that they had. Certainly was an adequate system. It's used across the state of Ohio, but it has never been used in Pennsylvania. That was one of the downfalls because it would have to be interfaced to the Pennsylvania system. Quite frankly, it was overpriced. It would cost $140,000 per county to get it up and running in each of the counties. And also, it wasn't timely. They couldn't complete the system until 2017. We also looked into the state of Indiana, the regional group of 4 counties. We looked into the state of Indiana. The reason being that Indiana had taken Ohio's risk needs assessment and they developed a hybrid system that they used throughout the state. The price was more reasonable, $30,000 to $40,000, but advice from our information technology department and the other counties' information technology departments indicated that there would be too many man-hours needed to interface the Indiana system into the Pennsylvania system, and it would not be cost-effective. So our third area or place we looked was CCAP, the County Commissioners Association, and the regional group initially approached CCAP about this project last year, but they were reluctant to become involved because of their commitment to UCM. I'm sure as you know, UCM is a unified case management system developed by by CCAP and currently used in over 40 counties, including Cumberland. It was actually our IMTO department that had follow-up conversations with the folks over at CCAP and spoke to them about the opportunities for the ORAS to grow across the state, interface with UCM, that finally convinced them to participate and offer a proposal. So their proposal, as far as being cost effective, remember that the
It's from CCAP?
It's from CCAP.
Okay, Darby, okay.
The proposal out of Ohio was $140,000 per county. The one out of Indiana was $30,000 or $40,000 per county. CCAP can put the system together and have it up and running for $42,800 total cost. That's $10,700 per county. Another benefit is it's a known product.
We're talking York, Dauphin,
Berks.
Cumberland,
And Berks.
and Berks, okay.
And the reason being it's just those counties is because they're the only local counties using the ORAS system at this time.
Okay, so we kind of like piggyback onto what they're already doing.
Yes.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, that's one of the big things. It's obviously it's a known product. I mean, CCAP's respected organization. They have resources to develop and support the project. It's going to interface with the UCM case management system that we use now. So it will be user-friendly, and it's time that they can start on June 5th and have the project completed by August 31st. And probably the greatest benefit, getting on the floor of this whole idea, is that I think there's going to be other counties come in because this is going to grow because of the strategic plan statewide. And the ORAS is a very attractive system to use. So our cost, as far as our maintenance cost or anything, my understanding is there will not be any county that gets someone after this will be put back in the coffers to do phase 2 or whatever we need. So I think there is certainly a benefit to being on the ground floor here to get started with the other 3 counties. So our partners in the project, Dauphin, York, and Berks, they have endorsed the CCAP proposal and are prepared to move forward with the development. So I'm before the board today requesting that we do the same and fund the ORAS IT solution as proposed by the County Commissioners Association. And I do have a copy of the proposal. They actually sent it to you this morning.
Did you say you got a summary of that sent to us?
Yes.
Okay.
It should have been an email.
I'm looking at a PowerPoint you sent me. This is the first I've seen it, I hate to say. Evidence-based practices for criminal justice.
Yes, that's a general overview PowerPoint of evidence-based practice.
But it's inserted in. I glanced through.
It talks about assessment, and there's a number of assessments that are used. It doesn't specifically talk about the ORAS.
Okay, I was going to say I didn't see the terminology.
This PowerPoint is from the Carrier Associates.
It's carrier group, yes.
All right.
So what we're doing fits within that general rubric.
Yes.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
Darby, is this a one-time fee to exclude, do I see some additional training, et cetera?
Yeah, the training's included. My understanding is the $10,700 is a one-time fee.
So essentially, you've got the tool, you've been training the tool, but you're using it on a paper basis.
And then paper, that's correct.
Okay, so this will basically not only automate, compile, digest, analyze here, but it'll also feed into a bigger aggregation of data from the other counties as well.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it's going to be good from the probation officer's perspective because it's going to be automated. It's going to be easier for them to use. From my perspective, it's really good because the data will help us grow and help us have better outcomes, and we can review the data and see what works and what doesn't work, and then move forward.
Go ahead.
But just anecdotally, can you give us forget the automation part, but just a before and after, an example of how Horace has sort of changed, like an outcome for a particular individual
I can tell you that we have about 3,000 cases in the probation office. And we really didn't know. And one of the first points of the assessment tool is we can identify low, moderate, high, and very high risk. So many times in the past, we've been categorizing everybody without too much concern with the risk factor. And I think the studies will show that high-risk people don't need to be supervised. In fact, if you over-supervise low-risk people, if you over-supervise low-risk people, you can actually affect them negatively by over-supervising. And it's best to pinpoint those people in the moderate and high range if you can work with those people. It also frees up your resources that we have been supervising low-risk people that really don't need supervised. So we've been doing the ORAS assessment since the beginning of the year, and it's very small sample, so I don't want to put much stock into it. But we had 211, in the first quarter we had 211 assessments completed, full assessments. And of those 211, 70% were low risk, 27% were moderate risk, and 3% were high risk. If that holds true, and I don't know if it will, but if that holds true, that tells me that I can reposition my resources to those moderate and high risk and reduce recidivism. That's the whole point behind the assessment tool. And that's the part that I'm excited about. And then beyond that, the assessment tool also pulls out those criminogenic needs, those areas which have shown to increase additional crimes. People commit crimes, and we can pinpoint services to those needs to reduce recidivism.
How long is this ORAS? By the way, we're going to have to add this to our glossary of acronyms.
Yes.
Wherever that is. But how long has that existed?
I think the ORAS came out of Ohio in the 2000s, so it's been about 10 years.
And they've seen, success with the reduction of recidivism?
Yeah, I think across the seminar that we had on reducing recidivism across the table, as far as evidence-based practice and reducing recidivism, it's been shown that the use of assessments is number one priority to get the process started, and it does reduce recidivism for the reasons that I explained earlier about targeting risk and targeting needs.
Now, you said that York, Dauphin, and Berks have already been involved with this,
Yes.
and are they certified? They're among, what you said, I think 7, or how many, 40?
There's seven counties certified in the ORAS of Berks
Okay.
County.
So do they already have the technology, York, Dauphin, and Berks?
No, they've been looking for an information solution. Actually, Dauphin County has been certified in the ORAS for probably the last year. They're the longest. Berks has certified, they're getting ready to up and run, and York, just in the last part of the 2015, they started doing assessments, so it's all relatively new for each of the counties.
Okay, so, and they're all looking for this,
Solution.
the technology, or to be able to do it using computers, I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm still kicking and screaming to the 21st century. Okay, CCAP, is it Rita, and I can't think of her last name, is she the person who's handling this?
Friends.
Their technology person over there?
Yes.
Okay. And so if we get into this now, each county pays $10,000 to buy into this, and then this is, what was the answer to Ben's question? It's a one-time fee, or this is an annual fee?
It's a one-time fee.
One-time fee, okay. What about counties down the road? What are they gonna pay to get into it? Are they gonna pay a like amount, or, in other words, we're blazing the trail here, right?
Yes. I had that very same question for Rita on Monday when we were at CCAP about it. And her response was that since we're on the ground floor with this, that as new counties come in, there's also a second phase of this, which would develop a case plan, which is very important to us. And any county that comes in, they would be charged the $10,700 fee, and that money would go towards developing phase 2 and continue to upgrade the IT system.
So in other words, down the road, if you're the 30th county, you're still gonna pay the $10,700.
Yes. Hopefully we can get a rebate
And you're saying, and yeah, and the bottom line is by us all going together, it's a lot cheaper than if we were to do it on our own.
Yes. Because when we started looking at the University of Cincinnati, the development cost was the same if we did it or we went all together, and it was just more to bear for the counties, what single counties can afford together.
Could you just speak briefly about CCAP as a provider in terms of your experience with UCM? A lot of effort went into UCM. Just speak to how much of an impact that's had, and then maybe address how being able to link UCM up with the ORAS automated system would help your efforts.
We went live with UCM in October of 2014. And there was a transition. We had our system in place for probably 10 years. And it wasn't the system was necessarily bad. It was just a change for everybody. And everybody had to get used to it. I would say since we've been doing it for the last year or so, that we are to the point that we accept the system and it runs well and we're pleased with it. CCAP has been very much involved. They have a help desk. We can call them and get things resolved very quickly. I know they're expanding, hope to expand through all the counties. And what that system does, it allows us eventually, is especially for transfer cases, now that we do paper shuffle with transfer cases from county to county, that we'll all be able to do that on the computer and transfer information more efficiently. I'm looking forward to that. And also, it's going to help us out when the other offices in the county come on board. I know the public defender's office is working on that now. The key will be the district attorney's office coming on board, because what we're doing now in our office is we're loading a lot of the front information that actually the DA's loading. It comes to us and we're loading the system because we're right now the front people with UCM. Once the other systems can run the DJ, the MDJ, the district attorney, the public defender, and probation, that information is already being loaded by the DA, will be loaded in the system and will help us out tremendously as far as data entry.
Who from our IMTOs was working with CCAP on this?
Adam Green. And Adam has been involved. In fact, he was with me at the CCAP when we meeting in London, so they have been a very big part of this whole county. As far as having the system and being able to access it, UCM, obviously whatever the probation officers are entering assessments in the system, it's going to be very easy to go from UCM into the assessment. It's all going to be on the same page. It's the same language. We can pull reports, we can pull data. It's just going to work seamlessly, really.
Any other questions or comments?
Do you have any observations about that, since you're on?
I encouraged Darby to come here. I was a big fan of UCM, big fan of Horace, and through the work on the Criminal Justice Policy Steering Committee. Earl's people are using it. It's, I think Darby, I think, summarized it well. In the old system, you just assumed everybody was like really rotten and required full court press, which just didn't align with reality and led to misallocation of resources, more people in prison that needed to be more focused, diverted from where it's truly needed to where it maybe wasn't needed. This is all science-based, it's evidence-based, it's data-driven, and this is just a chance to, it's a shame to have a data-driven system that you're working on. This just takes it to the next level. So to me, this is, I think, a very good investment.
Yeah, I agree too. I think it's a small price to invest in something that have unlimited benefits. I support it.
Yeah, I do too. I'm a little bit of a skeptic, relative to some of this, because there's always exceptions to the rule, right?
Obviously, yes.
And, but I think if we focus, the result, the intent is to focus greater resources to those who are likely to recommit an offense, and that makes sense to me. So, in other words, to keep them out of trouble, reduce crimes, and, but you're always gonna have somebody, you know, who may be police defender or whatever, who may also, you know, go off the ranch at some point.
And to add to that, I talked to the district attorney about this because we're moving forward with supervising high-risk limit. And I talked earlier about the 70% of low-risk offenders. And, you know, there's going to be people out of that 70% that reoffend. The tool says that 10% of those are going to come back and reoffend. Some of those, it's going to be bad. But we're playing the numbers. We're also saying that there's the high risk, they have reoffended a rate according to the validation studies at 60%. So should we concentrate all our time on that 70% when 10% are going to offend, or should we concentrate more time on the high risk people when 60% of them are going to offend? So we're basically playing the numbers. And that's what the science comes in, what we've never done before.
And as you accumulate all this data, then you can refine the science and hopefully even improve.
Yes.
I just throw in, this is very consistent with a number of things we've been pushing here at the county for quite a while. Increased use of performance measures and the reallocation of existing resources toward the greatest need and the greatest possible return on investment. So it sounds very much in alignment with the things I've been preaching for a while, so I'm very favorable to this.
Do we want to make a motion? Is this the
Can we do that?
It's a public. Well,
Is
we're
that-
going to put it on for the workshop tomorrow.
If we can act on it, I'll make a motion to approve it. Our participation at a cost of $10,700 to participate with the counties of York, Dauphin, and Berks in cooperation with the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania.
Is there a second?
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dr.
Thank you, Dr.
All right. Next up, the world-renowned Cumberland County Planning Department. We all know that Cumberland County is the fastest growing county in Pennsylvania, but underneath that lies all kinds of interesting things. The planning department has come to report to the commissioners on county growth in the past, and the commitment is to continue to come and provide updates. This is a big thing within the BEM context, which not only concentrated on managing costs, but also on how we increase revenues. Some of that stuff is stuff we can do through fees, but a lot of it depends on what's going on in the economy around us. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to our esteemed colleagues.
Now, before you get started, I just want to say that photograph that's in the Carlisle Sentinel today does not do you justice. So you,
Which one is that?
you need to get a new picture of that. Here, we got a reporter here from the Sentinel.
Oh, it's that, the one they used before, yeah.
Yes, this is here.
Yeah.
I think it was taken down to Disneyland.
After I got off the ride, right?
Anyway, totally threw you off there. So.
Do you guys want to come on up?
Oh, yeah, sure.
To the big table?
Up here to.
Good to see you, Mr. Dowd.
Sure, Steve, Jeff Kelly with us today. You may or may not be aware, the County Planning Department does an annual building permit survey of our municipalities. We had excellent response. You know, for the last 15 years, every municipality has responded. And so when I talk to other counties, it's really rare. You know, a lot of times they ask for data, but the municipalities tell them to go pound sand. So in this case, you know, municipalities are responding. We share the data back out as part of our annual report. And there's a lot of good trends that we see in here, but today what we're going to do is just walk through, I think we sent out 2 handouts, just quickly walk through those. One's on residential growth trends, the other is on commercial industrial. But Jeff's the czar of the whole process, and let him just send out the surveys. He's the survey master, so I let him take care of everything.
Okay, if we'll go with the residential growth one first. Have that one there. And this is actually 16 years there from 2000 to 2015. Below is sort of the big picture type of issues, I guess, that have come out of it. And just explain that dark line you see is the number of proposed units that we've seen submitted for review, and we get that number through the number of plans submitted to our office, okay? So you can see in the heydays there, 2005, 6, and 7, a really high amount of units of the houses being proposed. And then it dropped off significantly there in the recession in 2008 and stayed low. It stayed low pretty much since then. The lighter line you see below this remains fairly consistent throughout there is the number of permits, residential permits issued by the municipalities, okay, in comparison there. And as you can see, it's remained pretty steady. It made a drop also during that recession, going down in 2008 and 2009. But one thing that's seen is that if you look at the darker line, the number of proposed, it has since the recession, 2008, it has remained below the lighter line, the number of permits being issued. So there's more permits being issued than plans being submitted for it. And that's based probably on the number of plans we received in that 2005, 6, and 7 timeframe. That's a pipeline. Those are stages, phases being built out since then. So we've been able to maintain construction on housing, even though the number of plans submitted for them has been reduced during the recession. The one thing that I want to point out then is, if you look there at the darker line, the number of proposed units, it does go up above the number of permits being issued here in 2015. So that's the first time that's happened since 2007, when it dipped below down into 2008 during the recession. So what it's showing is, I think there's a little bit of confidence then here in the housing market. They're actually proposing more units now than we've seen permits being issued. If you look at the permits being issued this year too, it has slightly gone up since last year, with 922 permits issued, so it has shown a slight increase. That's that number 1 there below in the big picture item. So it has maintained that sort of stable number since 2011. And like I said, now number 2, that increase in the number of proposed units from 724 to this year over 1,000, almost 2,000 units there. That's an increase of 52%. Quite an increase. That's about 370 more units being proposed in 1 year than the year before. 2000, that number 3 just pretty much talks about the pipeline, which I explained. It's pipeline's been able to go because of that large amount of units proposed back in 2006-7. Number 4, I just want to point out too, the number of proposed units, that large number there, this last year, up to 1,098, those proposed, those are mostly taking place in 3 municipalities. 3 municipalities.
Guess which one?
One of them is Silver Spring.
I think half of them.
Roll around and Silver. Those 3 municipalities have really been the engine, I guess, fueling this. Most of the units coming from those 3 this last year.
You're anti-development.
In spite of it.
The types of units too that are being proposed, if you look at number 4, it's interesting in that this last year, most of the units proposed are either multifamily apartments or townhouse. 71% of those being proposed.
Wow.
So quite an increase. If you look at number 5 below that, the number of permits the same time period for the last year was only 42% multifamily and townhouse. So what that's saying is, thinking that in the next few years, we're going to get a lot more construction of townhouse and multifamily units as they go through the system, through the process to build.
Jeff, maybe you mentioned this, but so the move toward higher density housing, is that in all of these municipalities, or is that concentrated in certain areas of the county?
It's concentrated in the east in those 3, basically, that I mentioned in Hampton Township. So,
Yeah, okay. family. So Southampton, for instance, even though it's fastest growing, it's still lower density.
We've seen too also in the boroughs, with more of the multifamily types of developments.
So Jeff, I don't know if this is a fair question, but in terms of the population growth of the county, is the increased housing taking place in the areas where the population is increasing? Or is the increased population moving into older houses and older buildings?
The population, I know, I just checked the population estimates, I guess, actually. Yeah, the population estimates for the last 5 years, let's see, has gone up to, it was 146, or 246,000, okay? So we've increased about 10, 11,000 since the census in 2010. That is on par with what we've been doing normally, about a 1% growth per year. So as far as the amount of housing catching up, it is. I think it is matching the population growth. Where exactly that population growth is occurring, it is occurring in the east. That's where the growth is occurring, as far as housing is concerned. It's in the east.
We've done some estimates too. You know, we look at the household size, average household size in the county, look at the 1% growth. Typically, we need about 1,000 building permits per year to provide enough housing for the increase in population. Look at it, we've been pretty close to that. You look at the ups and downs, and then this year we're almost on that number. So I think we've been kind of slow and steady. You know, while we're the fastest growing county in the state, we look nationwide. You know, 1% per year is not fast. We look at some other areas. But I think we've been kind of slow and steady. We've been providing adequate housing for folks who are here. Multifamily trend is one that we've seen. And I think you're seeing increased demand for those multifamily units. Folks maybe looking for other alternatives to single-family homes. So,
Does that portend a potential problem? If we've got a lot of mature communities, especially in that area, and it's all built up with single-family dwellings. So if the new housing is being built, at what rate is that absorbing the population increase? And is there a possibility? Are these numbers pointing toward a possible? What we don't want to have happen is to have people eschewing the existing housing, emphasizing the new housing, and driving demand for development of open spaces while we're hollowing out existing mature communities. Are the numbers pointing that way, or are we going to be able to absorb the increased population somewhat with the fact that the demographics are that we're going to have a lot of folks leaving the scene one way or another in the next decade, and that housing, single-family housing, is going to become available, particularly in a town like Cumberland, where I live. So, do we anticipate?
we have residential conversions from single-family to multifamily.
I already see a lot of that.
Yeah, you do see some of that, and with our recent, as we're updated county comprehensive plan, working with the redevelopment authority, housing redevelopment authority, through some of their findings, there is a need for multifamily housing in the county. There's not enough, and you see the contract rent's pretty high. So, as we see some of these units come on board, we think it's a good trend.
When you say you're multifamily residential, we're talking about not just owner occupied, we're talking about apartments.
Yeah,
Okay.
we all,
Yeah.
And I think there's no question, relative to that, there's a growing demand for apartments and affordable, housing. So it's interesting that we're seeing that development. And I think, if you look at the numbers across the country, it seems like there's a greater demand now for smaller housing
Smaller
units.
scale.
Yeah, as opposed to the cookie cutter, acre lot and big house and all this grass to cut. I think a lot of the younger generation, they really are interested in, they don't want to spend a lot of time taking care of their property.
Well, and their parents want to get them the heck out of the house.
Well, that's true. But that's interesting. Have we seen, in previous surveys where we've had, such an increase in multifamily residential development, or is this something
multifamily
new?
increase. This is last year was about 50% was multifamily and townhouse. The year before that was in the same area, around 60%. So within the last 5 years, I see it's been about 50% or more. We have seen that increase in multifamily and townhouse.
I would imagine the school districts aren't too thrilled about this. Because, you know what I mean, because the more
Sure.
multi-units you have, that increases the number of students, unless they're senior housing or, you know,
Some of these are, yeah, some of these are.
okay.
It also really underscores, this is something we've dealt with repeatedly here, the commissioners have been advised of, is the need for transportation to connect where people live to where the jobs are, which tend to be more down along 81 as you get into the center of the county.
Jim, you made a good point too. Sometimes there are some, you talk about the school district. Overall, sometimes I think there's some negative feelings about apartments and multifamily development in municipalities. And a lot of folks, when they see multifamily, think, wow, it's immediately low income, or they have some negative perceptions of it. When you look at the reality of what's being built out there, a lot of this stuff is really nice.
No,
nice
Kurt,
units.
my commentary on that just had to do with the fact that, because of the financial situation our school districts are in, they love to see commercial development, because that doesn't put any more kids in school. But, multifamily, all of a sudden you have a couple of these pop up, and, you gotta need to build more schools, okay? So, I mean, it didn't really have anything to do with, socioeconomic.
Yeah,
I'm talking primarily about, just from a fiscal point of view, the school districts, would like to see in terms of the revenue enhancement.
Sure. I think I'm just making the point from our end is we're looking at some of these trends, and we've seen some multifamily proposals come forward. Sometimes we have a stigma attached to it, but I think as we see increasing demand for it, that stigma has to change, so that folks realize we need housing for all income levels. Whether it be multifamily, single family, attached, whatever it may be, we need a lot of different housing types for us all income.
Just come on down to Deerfield Common in Shippensburg, and I'll show you the apartments that can go for $800, $900, $1,000 a month, and they're sweet.
And that little development over in Vince's Silver Spring Township, it's called Walden or whatever. I mean, it's like they created like their own little village there.
That's not a little development.
Okay, it's a big development. But no, I think it's kind of neat. We take our dog over there.
Oh, yeah, just like it's a little.
It's a groomer over there.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, I mean, it's nice to see those kind of developments. And again, I think, it's going to be interesting to see over the next number of years, maybe decades, as to how, redevelopment occurs. I mean, with all these malls we have, people really like, they would like to see the residential mixed with commercial, kind of development. And we may see some of our malls being redeveloped, at some point. So if I'm looking at this, so in other words, we have, in terms of proposed development, residential, 724 and 14 to 1,098. Now, some of those, do we have any track as to what it looks like so far in 2016? Or was this, in other words, is that trend still going up? Or
Yes.
okay.
So far, what we've received, so far, that by the end of the year, we should exceed 1,098. We should, because we have about 1,000 now
Okay.
in May. So I think we haven't even hit summer yet. So I think that's going to go up. We'll have higher than that 1,098 for 2016.
And some of those proposed development, they're still in the process of being developed now in 2016, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So do we expect to see the 922, increase?
I would say yes. I hate to jump on that, but I would think yes, because of the number of units being proposed here in 2015, which exceeded. And then we're still going, that trend is still going to 2016. I think next survey, we'll see that 922 go up. That's my forecast.
just to expand on that, some of that and some other things you mentioned earlier. Okay, the prevailing trend at the beginning of this graphic puts you in that threshold, that 1,000 to 2,000 threshold. And that's the prevailing trend, because they're multi-years and it may have pre-existed. Then you have the peak, which implies, as you said earlier, essentially a substantial backlog. The pipeline has a substantial backlog. Now, in the recovery phase here, I noticed the threshold has moved to the 500 to 1,000 level and has remained there for some time, even during the so-called recovery years of the economy. And the delta between, let's say, projected and actual, your number of construction is outstripping your new permitting. So that's obviously, the delta in there is you're starting to work off the backlog. But that backlog looks enormous based on the graphic in 2005, 2006. So obviously there's probably still a substantial backlog there. And we anticipate that virtually all of it will eventually get addressed. And yet we're still functioning at the much lower threshold level. So that could exist for a while. Does the fact that we have that backlog, does that impact your future planning directions at all, number one? Number two, do we know how much of that backlog might be various, since the permits are issued, how much of it is the higher density, what was the term you used, multifamily? So how much of what's pending out there is multifamily versus single family, lower density? And does that impact what you do, not only what you project, but what you do in terms of the planning functions at all? I know it's kind of multi-dimensional.
It's hard to first answer the question. It's hard to say if all of those, like that peak in 2005, 3,100, all that is going to be built out. Some may have changed over time and been reduced in the number of units. Some may have said, some developers may have walked away and said, no.
Okay. And we don't have a handle on what that might be.
So I don't have the exact numbers of what that would come out to be built out completely, because I don't know how many they do it all, basically at this point. But I haven't checked back then as far as how many multifamily, that kind of thing. Back in that time frame, as I recall, it was mostly single family.
Okay.
With the type of developments that were being proposed. The larger single family, taking a lot of space type of development.
Yeah, that was the like mansion era.
Yeah. That's because everybody expected whatever they spent on the house would go up exponentially, so why not spend more?
Well, the good times, everybody thinks it's always going to be good times, and the bad times. always think it's gonna
And
be
when you
bad.
can get a mortgage if you don't even have a job.
Yeah. And even though that's tightened up, mortgage rates are incredibly low still.
And all those bankers that did that, they're all in jail, aren't they? Oh, no, wait.
No.
Yeah. Well, I think that's got to be part of what the story is here, is that, even though the interest rates are low, it's still somewhat difficult for especially young families to get a mortgage. They really tightened up, and trying to avoid people getting in over their heads, which is what happens.
I guess that's one of the things I was getting at. Do we think that or anything else is a contributing factor to the new lower threshold, even during its recovery phase? We're actually building at a much slower rate.
I think some of it's demographic too. When you look nationwide, read some of the trends with the millennials. Everybody's focused on the millennials and what they're doing, and how they're going to change the world. They're living at home longer. They're looking at different types of housing stock, so they're not looking at the single family. They can't afford it a lot of times.
Well, yeah.
So they're looking at multifamily, looking at rental units as opposed to that. So I think some of it's demographic.
Well, and a lot of the recovery is on Wall Street, not on Main Street. A lot of folks, real wages are pretty much flat with planning amongst the people who would constitute your main impetus for the quantity of whites in the past.
And yet, this area historically has been a little more even keeled too. We don't have the big washout that a lot of areas have had. So I'm still surprised to see that threshold moving consistently at that much lower rate. Do these trend lines impact anything that you guys do or change anything that you were doing before?
I know one thing we try to do is, when I talk to municipalities, have them zone
Yeah.
to meet the population projections. So we do have population projections and housing projections. And so we can break that down by municipality. And so when we look at, if we look at one specific municipality, we can see how it's zoned residentially, and see, is it overzoned basically for residential use? And if it is, we can tell them that, and we do that through updating the comp plans and the zoning ordinances and things like that, and we provide that information to them. So in that regard, yes, that's all our plan.
And we still have, what, 3 municipalities that have no zoning? But they're very slow growth areas. They don't need it.
What are those three? Is that Cook Township? Is that
Cook Township, Upper Frankfurt, and Upper Mifflin. Upper Mifflin has a draft ordinance we help them with, but I'm not sure they're going to adopt it. Next meetings, I don't believe they're interested at this time, but, you know, Cook Township, there's just not a lot going on there. Upper Frankfurt seems to be, fine, happy with the controls they have in place. Some of them just don't see a lot of development. I think, locally they have to make the decision whether or not it's right for them. And, Upper Frankfurt, they had asked us to help out with looking at their subdivision ordinance. We're out giving some suggestions on that. To date, that's what we're
Well, and to your credit, the approach of Cumberland County planning has always been, we're here if you need us. And at least that's been for the last decade or so.
Just to follow up on Gary's question, knowing these growth trends and so forth, those who have, their own, zoning, if you see now that there's going to be more of a trend toward, more moderately priced or affordable homes, maybe resident or multi-units, townhomes. Does the county get involved in, advising the townships, say, hey, you got too many residential, single-family, plans here, and you might want to consider,
Generally,
you might want to consider R2 zoning or whatever?
Yeah, when they put in for new comprehensive plans, they have to come through our office for review. We do have an opportunity then to review them and provide comment at that time. And through their zoning ordinances too, when they update those. Other than that, unless they're requesting that information from us, and we do provide that, we do say that we can provide that to them, so we offer that to them. But we wouldn't, I guess, do a separate study unless it was requested of us for a township or
Well, like you said, Kirk, I mean, in some cases, it's viewed negatively, especially by, areas surrounding like a single family and residential development. But in terms of what is possible, what a developer might do, and what, might work, municipalities might be interested in knowing that, but of course, then they go through the whole process, and you get the public hearings, and people say what they're going to say, and so forth. But I think there's no question there's going to be a continued demand for housing. It's whether or not, I don't think people can afford today. A lot of these, to use instances, were McMansions that were like seemed to be blowing up all the time back in the 2000s.
That's a residential, and the other piece there is the commercial industrial, highlights of that.
Yeah, same thing as far as the lines there. The heavy one is what's been proposed, submitted to our office for review through land development plans. And then you can see the lower one there is the permits being issued. And you can see that pretty much, again, early 2000s, it was very high and it went down And pretty much around the 2008, 2009 period, you see the proposals, the darker line went down to its lowest. And that the lighter line, the permits that were issued, pretty much follows that general trend going down. What does happen though, after 2010, you see there's a change occurs there. 2011, the permits begin to go up, and they continue to go up, and they pass by the proposals. Which I think it's an interesting, I guess, phenomenon, you could say, is why it's doing that. And that one thing I think is that the recovery, at least in the commercial and industrial development, happened a little faster, I think, than in the housing market. So you've seen much more development occurring. But what I think you're seeing there, if you look at number one, the big picture there, the second sentence with that high permit numbers in 2012, 2014, 2015, pretty much due to new businesses opening up in the boroughs, in Carlisle and Mechanicsburg. And those are going into existing buildings. So we're not seeing a land development plan for them, since they're not required to submit one to our office. So I think what that's showing is sort of a trend in redevelopment activities in existing buildings.
I was going to ask you how these two trends overlay, and interact.
And I think that's what we're seeing here, is that more of that is occurring. That we still are getting permits and still seeing plans submitted, but we're seeing a lot more occurring in the boroughs in these existing buildings than we have in the past. So maybe a big trend as far as redevelopment is concerned. We're going to get to and 2009 kind of mirrors one another, suggesting toward the end there, you see through 2012 through 2015 that those proposed developments we're seeing aren't being built, pretty much so. When I say mirrored, you see that it's kind of interesting. The 2014 and 15 are exactly the same. We had the same number of permits and the same number of proposed facilities both years. Different municipalities, but it came out to be the same, so it kind of leveled off the same. I think what's being proposed is being built for the most part. And then 4 pretty much identifies those municipalities that had most during that time period. And it's basically in those 8 municipalities that have seen the most, and they're in order there. Silver Spring, as far as permits, commercial industrial has been number 1. And then for proposed units, comment number 5 there, proposed units, same, except if you look at the end there, Middlesex and Shippensburg Township have come into the mix there. East Pennsburg and Southampton, not so much as far as proposals in the last since 2000. But it's again the same, generally the same municipalities are driving the commercial and industrial growth also over the last 15 years.
For the most part, it's east of Carlisle. East. Good stuff.
Yeah, it is 2015, we are above the average of permits that have been submitted so far over that time period. So if it continues, I hope it does. It seems to be that trend. It's continuing that trend. Continue going up.
Very interesting. Yeah, I think it's all reflects what Kirkus was saying. We've been fortunate to have steady growth, even during the downtime. So we still had steady growth, where a lot of counties are losing population. So we always look good in comparison, right? We always look good. Okay.
Any other questions? Gentlemen, thank you. Good info. Is there any other business